The Japanese are traditionally convinced of their uniqueness. There exists an entire genre of publications dedicated to the theory of Japanese originality, where authors enthusiastically discuss how incomprehensible Japanese culture is to representatives of other nations. This sense of exceptionality is based on a clear awareness of the differences between the Japanese and the rest of the world. The word nation comes from the Latin natio, meaning born, which indicates lineage by birth. For the Japanese, this remains a decisive factor. Meanwhile, questions about the ethnogenesis of the Japanese still provoke debates and lead to various, sometimes contradictory theories. However, before delving into them, it is worth asking the main question. Who are the Japanese? And are they really as homogeneous as is commonly believed? About 40,000 years ago, the Japanese islands were connected to the mainland by land. It was then that the first people arrived here, representatives of what is known as the Jomon culture. Initially, they led a lifestyle of hunters and gatherers, but over time they transitioned to settled life and began to create pottery. It was these ceramic items that became the symbol of the era and gave it its name. The word Jomon translates to cord-marked. Modern genetic studies present a surprising picture. The haplogroup D1b, which dominates among bearers of the Jomon culture, makes up between 35 to 40% of contemporary Japanese men. It is believed that the Ainu, the indigenous population of northern Japan, are direct descendants of the Jomon people. Among the Ainu, the frequency of haplogroup D1b reaches 70%, which is the highest figure in the world. Interestingly, this genetic line is not found anywhere in East Asia except for Japan and Tibet. But who were these mysterious original settlers? For 16,000 years, the Jomon people lived on the islands in isolation. The rise in sea levels after the end of the Ice Age cut them off from the continent. They did not know agriculture, only engaged in gathering, fishing, and hunting. However, archaeologists find their traces all over the archipelago, from Kyushu to Hokkaido. Thousands of settlements, millions of pottery shards. And then, around 400 BC, everything changed. New people from the West arrived, bringing rice cultivation, weaving, and metal processing. Displacement began. Modern genetic data show that the Jomon component constitutes only 18 to 30% of the gene pool of modern Japanese. In Okinawa, this percentage is higher. In central areas, it is lower. Direct comparisons of skeletons show substantial differences between the ancient and incoming populations. What happened to the indigenous population? Among the Japanese, there is another ancient genetic line, haplogroup C1A1, which makes up 7 to 10% of the population. This is a rare line whose origin is not fully established. Some researchers note a certain genetic similarity with specific populations in the Pacific region, but the nature of this connection remains a subject of scientific debate. One hypothesis suggests that ancient bearers of this line may have inhabited the southern islands of the archipelago. These coastal dwellers possessed skills in deep-sea fishing. They may have been associated with fertility rituals and mythological cycles about sea deities. Who were these mysterious inhabitants of the southern islands? Southern Kyushu, the provinces of Osumi and Satsuma. Here, in a subtropical climate among active volcanoes, lived the Hayato and Kumaso tribes. Japanese chronicles referred to them as barbarians and feared their belligerence. The Hayato, which translates to hawk people, were known for their outstanding martial skills. That is why emperors employed them in wars against the Emishi tribes in the north and east of Japan, as well as recruiting them into the imperial guard. The Kumaso, whose name later gave rise to the modern city of Kumamoto, also resisted conquerors for a long time. However, in the 8th and 9th centuries, both tribes were subdued and gradually assimilated. Some geneticists suggest a link between haplogroup C1 and these ancient southern tribes. They mixed with the local population and dissolved into subsequent migrations. But what happened next to the archipelago? Around 400 BC, new types of settlements appeared in northern Kyushu. Their pottery differed from Jomon style. It was smooth and well-fired. These items were discovered in the Yayoi-machi area of modern Tokyo, which gave its name to the new Yayoi culture. Along with migrants from the continent came fundamentally new technologies. Domestic animals appeared: horses, cattle, sheep. Irrigated rice cultivation radically changed the life of the archipelago. Settled villages emerged, and food surpluses became available. Anthropological studies show that people of the Yayoi period were taller, with narrow faces, closely set eyes, and flat noses. This is the classic Mongoloid type, a stark contrast to the Jomon people. By the 3rd century AD, bearers of the Jomon culture remained only on the outskirts of the archipelago. But where did these new people come from? Genetic studies conducted in 2006 by researchers led by Hammer established a key fact. Haplogroup O2b came to Japan precisely with the spread of the Yayoi culture. Today, this line makes up about 32% of Japanese men, making it one of the leading paternal lines. A high frequency of O2b is found in southwestern Japan, especially on the islands of Honshu, Shikoku, and Kyushu. But the most astonishing discovery lies elsewhere. A comparable frequency of this haplogroup is observed among Koreans. This cannot be a coincidence. This is direct evidence of ancient migration from the continent through the Korean peninsula. Researchers agree that the migration did not occur directly from southern China, but through Korea. But what exactly was this route? The direct route from southern China to the Japanese islands was too dangerous for ancient mariners. Researchers agree that migration occurred via the Korean peninsula. The route can be reconstructed as follows: the delta of the Yangtze River, the eastern coast of China, the Yellow Sea, western and southern Korea, the Tsushima and Iki Straits, northern Kyushu. Archaeological finds confirm this hypothesis. Dolmens in the northern part of Kyushu, belonging to the Yayoi culture, are identical in character to burial mounds of the same period in South Korea. In this type of burial, the deceased's body was placed in an earthen pit or stone coffin, and the grave was covered with a huge monolith. This was not a local tradition. It was an import from the continent. Japanese researcher Mikami Tsugio suggested that people from the ruling class of southern Korean society might have infiltrated northern Kyushu. But what was happening on the continent at that time? In 473 BC, in present-day southern China, the state of Yue delivered a final blow to the neighboring state of Wu. The Wu ruler Fu Chai, who ruled since 495 BC, was defeated and committed suicide. Thousands of noble families were forced to flee their homeland. Ancient Japanese sources, in particular the text Shin Senshoji Roku, compiled in 815, report a surprising fact. The Matsuno no Muraji clan, one of the noble Japanese families, traced its origins back to the Wu ruler Fu Chai. The Chinese chronicle Weichi, dating back to the 3rd century AD, records an even more ancient connection. The people Warren, as the Chinese referred to the ancient Japanese, considered themselves descendants of Tai Bo, the Wu chieftain of the early 9th century BC. Around this time, the state of Chu actively seized the eastern coastal lands. The inhabitants of these areas, skilled navigators and traders, began to leave their homeland in droves. Where did they go? Around 400 BC, the planet began to change. Temperatures fell. The climate became colder and wetter. In western Eurasia, this drove the Celts toward a great migration. In the east, the era of the warring states began in China. 403 BC, 221 BC, blood, famine, chaos. Southern Korea is no exception. Colder, wetter. Rice yields fell. Families starved. Around 300 BC, residents of coastal areas looked south, across the strait. It is warmer there. Survival is possible there. They built boats, loaded seeds, took their children, Tsushima, Iki, northern Kyushu, wave after wave. This is not an army. This is desperation. Ecological expansion. Productive economy versus subsistence. Demography decides everything. After 3 generations, the balance of power changes. But who are these newcomers? Researcher Ishii Yoshimi uncovered a mystery. 16 ancient names. All end in Maru. Kanemaru, Isimaru, Komaru, Tokumaru. A strange pattern on the map, the highest concentration in a 2-kilometer zone from the oldest Yayoi settlements, the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC, the Ito area, Fukuoka Prefecture, northern Kyushu. Ishii concluded, these are residual names of the first settlements. Shuraku, a trace of the migrants from the continent. The map shows movement. First Fukuoka and Saga, then Iki Island. At the turn of the 2nd and 1st centuries BC, Oita and Kumamoto. During the Middle Yayoi period, the 1st century BC, the islands of Tsushima, Nagasaki Prefecture, southwestern Honshu, Hiroshima, western Shikoku, Ehime, Kochi. The wave rolls in from west to east. A temporary reduction of toponyms in Fukuoka, irreversible in Saga. The settlers moved on. They did not stop. What awaited them ahead? The year 300 AD, maybe 250 AD. Sources dispute. A new era begins in Japan. Kofun, burial mounds, huge earthworks in the shape of a keyhole. Inside, burial chambers, weapons, armor, bronze mirrors. This is not a continuation of Yayoi culture. This is a rupture. Genetic studies in 2021 and 2024 confirmed. Another significant wave. Bearers of genes unknown to either Jomon or Yayoi. From where? Northeastern Asia. New male lines. N1. Partly C2A. Enhanced mixing with the local population. From the 4th to 6th centuries, the Yamato monarchs subdued the western, central, and eastern lands of Honshu, conquered Shikoku, took control of northern Kyushu. This was an era of centralized power, an era of state building. The military elite from the continent brought new technologies, a new organization. Who were they? Hammer and his co-authors hypothesized. Haplogroups O3M122 and O2A1M95 appeared in Japan alongside the Yayoi culture. But historian Jacques-Célic Sabitov disagrees. His argument is simple. The Yayoi culture began in 400 BC. Mass migrations from the continent are recorded much later. The Register of Noble Clans of the 9th century reports. Of 1,182 clans, 327, 29%, were considered of foreign origin, 14% from China, 9 from Baekje, 4.5 from Goguryeo, 0.75 from Silla. If they emigrated during Yayoi, how could they remember states that arose in the 3rd or 7th centuries? Impossible. Under 540 AD, chronicles recorded. The people of Qin, 7,000 houses, more than 100,000 people. A huge wave, Sabitov's conclusion. O3M122 and O2A1M95 are associated not with Yayoi, but with Kofun. Conquerors, the elite, warriors. They conquered Japan. Who is next? Haplogroup N1. 8 to 10% of the Japanese. This is a northern line, northeastern Asia. Its maximum frequency is among the peoples of Siberia and the Baltic states. Finns, Estonians, Sakha. How did it get to Japan? Through Manchuria, through Korea, with the 3rd wave, the Kofun era. Studies show N1 is locally higher in certain regions, northern Honshu, Hokkaido. These are traces of migrations from the state of Goguryeo, the Manchurian state that controlled northern Korea. In the 4th and 6th centuries, Goguryeo waged wars with China and southern Korean kingdoms. The defeated fled. The dissatisfied sought refuge, some to the Japanese islands. They brought iron processing technologies, armor making, horse breeding. The Yamato monarchs eagerly accepted such warriors into service. N1 is their genetic signature, preserved through the ages. Can you imagine? Japanese samurai with ancestors from Siberia. And what else did the North bring? Haplogroup C2A. 3 to 7% of the Japanese. It is particularly high in Kyushu and Hokkaido. A paradox. 2 opposite ends of the archipelago. One line. C2A is linked to the northern migration route. Mongolia, Manchuria, Sakhalin. This line is characteristic of steppe peoples. Among Buryats, 35%. Among Evenks, 28%. Among Mongols, 40%. In Japan, it emerged with the Yayoi era, strengthened during Kofun. Two paths of penetration, the first through Korea, together with Otubi to Kyushu, the second through Sakhalin and Hokkaido, along with Tungusic Manchurian peoples. Japanese sources mention the Izumo people, inhabitants of western Honshu, present-day Shimane Prefecture. Researchers suggest Tungusic Manchurian origins. They encountered Yayoi migrants in the 2nd century BC, later assimilated. C2A is their trace in the genes. Mongolian blood in the veins of the Japanese. What does this change? Emishi, the barbarian shrimp. Thus, the Japanese referred to the aborigines of the north and east of Honshu. They resisted the empire for centuries. From the 6th to 9th centuries, continuous wars were waged for the subjugation of their lands. Imperial armies gradually advanced north, established fortresses, resettled the conquered. But who were the Emishi? Researcher Valery Kosarev lists the tribes: Kunisu, Kudzu, Saeki, Tsuchikumo, Ama, Tsuchikumo, the earth spiders, the most numerous tribe. They lived in earth huts and caves. From Kyushu to northern Honshu, some Emishi became ancestors of the Ainu, the northern Emishi. Some inhabited the Kanto region, modern Tokyo and its surroundings. The eastern Emishi. Genetics shows they were bearers of different subclades of haplogroup D2. Northern Emishi, Ainu, one subclade. Eastern Emishi, another. Related peoples, different branches. Later, Eastern Emishi were assimilated by the Japanese, but their genes remained. Where exactly? Haplogroup D2A1B02457. Over 25% in the Kanto region. This is a key detail. This line is practically absent among the Ainu. They have a different subclade D2, without M125. But in Kanto, Tokyo, Yokohama, the Valley, every fourth man carries D2A1B02457. Historian Jacques-Felix Sabatoff suggests this subclade belongs to the Eastern Emishi. They were related to the Northern Emishi, the Ainu, but were genetically distinct. In the 9th and 10th centuries, the Japanese conquered the eastern lands. The Emishi were partly exterminated, partly assimilated, but the genes remained. The Kanto region became the heart of Japan. The capital moved from Kyoto to Edo, Tokyo in 1603. A paradox. In the capital of the ruling nation flows the blood of the conquered people. A quarter of the population of Tokyo are descendants of the Emishi through the male line. The conquerors became the conquered. Genetically. Are they aware of this? What do the female lines tell? The Y chromosome tells the story of men. Conquests, migrations, wars. But there is another story. Mitochondrial DNA, passed only through the female line. Among the Japanese, 3 maternal lines predominate. D4H, an ancient Asian line related to Jomon. N9B, characteristic of Japan and Korea. M7A, common in Japan, Ryukyu, and Taiwan. A study from 2004 showed the Ainu's maternal lines are close to Tibetan and Siberian populations. But the picture is more complex for the Japanese. 66% of maternal lines have roots in China and Korea. This means that Yayoi and Kofun migrants took local women as wives. The conquerors came as men. Jomon women became their wives. Thus, the genes mixed. Genetic analysis shows modern Japanese are the result of constant mixing of newcomers and aborigines. Not replacement, not substitution. A merger. Every Japanese carries the blood of Jomon hunters, Korean rice farmers, and Manchurian warriors. What do the final numbers show? Geneticists analyzed 1,346 samples. The Y chromosome of Japanese men. O, all subclades, 52%. D2, 34, N, 9, C1, 3, C2, 1.5. The numbers of paternal lines. Autosomes show otherwise. 71% from Jomon, 16 from Yayoi, 13 from Kofun. Two methodologies, different results. By the end of Yayoi, the population was 1 million. By the 6th to 7th centuries, 5 to 6 million. A demographic explosion over 300 years. The Kanazawa Institute analyzed regions. Hokkaido has a high D2. Okinawa, 30 to 40% Jomon. Kansai, maximum O2B. Each region tells its own story, its share of ancestors. But the numbers do not explain the main thing. How did different waves become one people? Japan, the 21st century, 99% homogeneity. But genetics has revealed the secret. It is not purity. It is an ideal alloy. 3 waves over 3,000 years. Jomon hunters, Yayoi rice farmers, Kofun warriors, Sakoku. 2 centuries of closed borders, 1639 to 1853. Isolation did not create homogeneity. It conserved it. Today, Japan is once again conquering the planet. Anime, robots, martial arts, technologies. Research from 2021 has proven uniqueness does not arise from purity, but from the harmony of opposites. North and south, continental and islands, sword and hoe. 99% hide all ancient Asia. The strength of a nation lies in its multiplicity. The end of the investigation.